So, hello everyone, welcome back to the SustyTalk sofa, live from the Sustainability Leaders Forum in London. We started off with a bit of an introspective look at how a business operates sustainability, and now, against the lens of the ongoing energy crisis, we're going to look at the clean tech revolution and what that means for businesses. So joining me for this episode, we have two expert speakers on this. We have Vaitea Cowan, who is the co-founder of Enapter, which has hit the news quite recently with some big success, which we'll touch on shortly, and also Lara Young, who is the Climate Change Director at Costain Group. Lara is no stranger to the edie setup. Thank you both for agreeing to talk to me today. So I would like to start with, I know you both arrived at different times, so Lara, maybe we start with you. How have you found the talk so far at the forum?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. There's clearly a lot of engagement, a lot of passion. I think what's great to see is the conversation shifted from not just commitments, but what are we actually doing to following through on them, which is great to see. There is momentum and tangible change, really. So yeah, good so far.
Brilliant, and tangible change is really what we want to kind of focus in on, certainly around clean tech. And Vaitea, Enapter, one of the finalists obviously of the Earthshot Prize, which was a great success for you. But the audience at home might be a little bit unsure about Enapter and what it is that you are trying to achieve. So do you want to kind of give your elevator pitch, if you will?
My pleasure. Thank you for asking. So Enapter is a global energy tech company, and our mission is to make green hydrogen accessible and affordable for everyone. So essentially what we want to see in the world are planes flying with green hydrogen, long-term energy storage provided by green hydrogen, and steel and cement or glass, for example, being made with green hydrogen as an ingredient, let's say, instead of using fossil fuels, because we urgently need to decarbonize all of our sectors, and green hydrogen is an alternative to fossil fuels. And we're contributing to the energy transition by building a device that is called an electrolyzer, and that uses green electricity to split water into hydrogen and oxygen, and we get the green hydrogen molecule.
And in terms of that aspect of green hydrogen, because hydrogen is such an exciting technology and a lot of energy managers are really excited about it. I think currently the stock is it's 95% grey, I believe, hydrogen, or derived from fossil fuels as well. So in terms of the electrolyzer itself, why do you believe that that's going to be the transformative thing that will allow the world to come over to green hydrogen?
Yeah, I mean, as you've stated, right, there is a hydrogen market today, but 95% of it at the moment is from fossil fuels. So first stop, decarbonize this hydrogen market. And the one way to do it, instead of using steam methane reformation, which emits a lot of CO2 and methane, we can make green hydrogen using green electricity and water. And we believe that we have the right technology to do this at a very fast pace, and also to drive down the cost, because we're approaching green hydrogen from a modular perspective. So to paint a picture and to explain our confidence is, let's take an analogy of the IT industry in the 1980s and the electrolyzer industry today. So in the 1980s, the first computers were these supercomputers, right? These mainframes that took up a whole room, and they were really complicated, and that was the future, and only a few companies had these supercomputers. And then, in the 1980s, the portable computer came. And then here came this product that was compact and scalable and affordable. And now we even have blade servers, which are scaling computing capacities to the next level, driving down the cost. And we believe that at Enapter we are this PC of the IT industry, because when we look at others around, electrolyzers have been out for quite some time, but they're being built like these first mainframes, actually. And so these are complicated products that require sophisticated engineering and planning. They're expensive, they take time, and the maintenance is a whole thing of its own. And so we're coming with the approach, no, let's make a product and let's make it scalable, let's make it modular, because when we look at what has seen the most rapid cost reduction in economic history, it is through mass producing commodities. And we believe that our electrolyzer can be mass produced, and we can drive down the cost of green hydrogen quickly.
Great stuff. Well, it's certainly exciting for you. And we've seen, technologies like solar, which are now established, how the costs have plummeted there. So hopefully we can replicate that with hydrogen as well. And Lara, great time to bring you into this conversation. You, of course, are the driving force, I believe, Edie's own words to describe that, around Costain's current climate plan, which is obviously net zero over a 15-year period as well, which is a very short time frame in the grand scheme of things. And in terms of the technologies that you're looking at to drive that at Costain, what are the ones that excite you the most?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think around the technology, so in addition, it complements a lot of what Vaitea was saying around the green hydrogen and genuinely driving towards understanding how do we make a sustainable source of not just for green hydrogen, but also ensuring that actually we maximise the amount of renewables, in addition to making sure that that's integrated into all of the infrastructure. So creating loads of wind farms and stuff is great. We've got to make sure that we're also using that energy in the most energy consuming infrastructure in the UK. So in addition to the technologies around the energy efficiency and sustainable elements, some of the things I heard this morning actually, like from Sir David King around the marine bleaching of clouds and stuff, and I think that's brilliant. So there's a huge amount around emerging technologies is great, and the big focus around making it genuinely scalable and affordable to do so. So a lot of the technologies that we need exist already today, but not necessarily in a way that we can actually just straight away retrofit them into the existing markets, but making that happen isn't impossible. It does require changing how you think about a market, how we sort of set up from the start these technologies and implementing it. So yeah.
And so what can a business do to help, I suppose, de-risk or at least send some market signals out that these are the solutions that we want to pivot towards? Businesses perhaps don't quite have the steps to do that, but you can certainly use your voice. You can perhaps start to onboard it through trials. What kind of steps would you suggest?
Yeah, and I think a key bit is the transparency element. So actually, no one knows all the answers. So we can't claim to say we know exactly what for everything. However, we do know from some of the technologies that have been around for quite a number of years now, we know what works. We know what actually could work but needs to be scaled up, or actually for this to work, it's got to be on a mass scale or whatever it might be. So we need to move away from those trials that we've been doing for the last 5, 10, in some cases 15 years. Take the conversation of hydrogen. It's not actually that new a conversation. We need to really actually make those things that we know work, sort of embed them and industrialise that innovation, so it no longer becomes innovation. And for the areas where it's still relatively new and actually there is a genuine need to trial and test, but the key bit is the collaboration piece and joining up all of those dots. So if I take the construction engineering industry, we can be slightly guilty of replicating the same trial a number of times to sort of test and prove. As you mentioned, it's a very risk-averse industry. So one of the key bits is actually we need to try and test this stuff, but we need to make sure that we're not repeating the same thing, which staggers widespread sort of adoption of it. So it's making sure that we trial and test and prove it. We know where it works, where it does, but where it does work, genuinely roll it out. A key bit is really bringing this to life and making it the mainstream thing to do, not the innovative thing to do. Sounds simple, but it's a lot of behaviour change, really. But yeah.
Oh no, absolutely. And Vaitea, I haven't heard that. How are you trying to position your solution in front of businesses when they understand the potential of it, but right now there's perhaps a little bit of a chasm that needs to be overcome in terms of getting that initial, not buy-in, but support for it?
Yeah, I mean, from a technology provider's perspective, we approach this by making a product that is very simple to use. So when you want to integrate an electrolyzer, all you do is get the device, put it into a rack when you're stacking them, and then scan a QR code, and then there you go. You can basically commission it and start generating green hydrogen. So I think by making a simple to use, easy to integrate, and quick also to integrate product, we kind of lower the barrier to implement green hydrogen, and also by making a cost-effective product. When you look at the cost on the market, actually we are competitive on cost and performance, so we're kind of giving everything we've got to the market to adopt green hydrogen solutions, because it will really be part of this solution for the energy transition puzzle. Just as we heard from Lara, there is not just one solution actually. It's going to be a combination of them, and we believe that we have one of them. And when we're working with our customers and our partners, I love that you bring up the construction sector, because there is a lot of work to do there, and those EPCs, they do need some support in understanding what are the options there, and then also just making it a turnkey solution, making it just like a plug-and-play solution really does accelerate the adoption. And so when we're looking into our use cases today, they're really all across the four sectors, whether it is producing green ammonia or refueling trucks or just providing long-term storage. We're seeing the proofs that providing a solution that is easy to integrate, fast, and also cost-effective is so far the winning combination for us.
And I want to have a quick glance ahead at the future then. I touched upon solar now. It's now able to kind of compete cost competitive without subsidies in the UK, which is a great success story. Offshore wind and onshore wind are now getting there as well, in terms of low strike prices as well. So for green hydrogen and Enapter, what does success look like for you in 10 years' time? What's the state of play?
Yeah, I mean, in 10 years from now, we'll be done with the defining decade, right? So in 10 years from now, I seriously hope the world looks different, and that we have actually gotten our act together in the next 8 years. On our end, actually, our timeline is 2022, and then of course we've got our 2023 and our next 5 years. But when we just look at what are we doing this year, we're building a mass production site in Germany which is fully powered by renewables, and when it goes live, Q1 of 2023, we'll be mass producing starting with 10,000 units a month. And this is where we see that our cost is competitive with fossil fuels with the output of our green hydrogen. That's one big milestone for us, right? Mass producing our systems. Another one is scaling up not only from our kilowatt product, but also going into the megawatt scale of electrolyzers, and that's also in the works right now. So I think the timeline has to be much shorter because, if we give ourselves 10 years, then we'll realize it on year 9, and then it's way too late. So I think success for us is having made green hydrogen affordable and accessible for everyone, having a network of integrators that are enabling the transition to green hydrogen, and really supporting as many individuals as we can, and companies, of course, to use green hydrogen solutions, and hiring a lot of great individuals along the way.
Great stuff. And Lara, I'll give you a little bit longer than 10 years because I think 13 years would technically be the net zero goal, 2035 for Costain. What does reach net zero, appreciate this is quite an open-ended question, but reaching net zero for Costain, what does your business look like in 2035 if that milestone is reached?
Yeah, I mean, if we can do it by 2030, we're all for it. So 2035 is at the very latest, so we'll bring it forward if we can. Realistically, to your point before, we can't retrofit net zero or any of the wider sustainability aspects that we need to address, be it social value, natural capital. We can't do it or retrofit it into our existing business models, or certainly the construction engineering's current way of working. So what does that actually look like for us? Well, there's a big part of a significant part of our impacts come from what we design, so the actual concept, inherently what we're actually delivering. So the stuff that we work on is, it exists for 100, 150 years life cycles. So we've got to ensure that actually what we're designing, whilst we drive sustainability within what we're currently doing, but actually I think that will look completely different in terms of how it's used. So actually we currently design infrastructure to last as long as possible. Yet no one can really paint the picture of what infrastructure will look like in 50 years, say, let alone 120. So actually making infrastructure more modular, so that actually whilst we don't know the answer yet, we're able to plug in and play and add more bits depending on what's available then. So I think a big part of it is actually being more modular and more flexible in what we currently create or help. Bearing in mind that there is very little new infrastructure, a lot of it is regeneration of existing, optimizing existing. So that's pretty key. The second big part of where our industry has quite a big impact is around the materials, just the sheer nature of what we currently use. Concrete, steel, aggregate, asphalt, all the sort of carbon intensive industry or materials you can think of we use in our sector at the moment. There is a big part of alternative materials, has a massive part to play, but it's not just about the alternatives. There is also a big part in actually just being more efficient and more effective with what we design. So the risk aversion of our industry has led to, in some instances, actually we can over-engineer compared to what is required. So there is that balance between the combination of alternative materials, a way in what we actually design integrally to how we consider it, the whole life cycle and concept of it, and then also just being more effective and more efficient with the materials that we use. And that in itself will completely shape how the industry works and what it looks like. A big part of that is reliant on how we set up contracts and how we're actually procured. So the construction industry and engineering as a whole is whilst we're trying to make it more circular, it is still very linear. And actually, to your point at the very beginning, everyone needs some skin in the game for this to work. So be it around the opportunity or be it about the risk taking, and it shouldn't fall the burden on just one. So there is that balance needs to be had. So and it's conversation that's happening, but yeah, it still needs a little bit more maturity before we're there.
Sounds like a busy decade for both of you, and a decade sounds like a long time, but it will go by in the blink of an eye. And speaking of things that have gone by very quickly, I don't want to keep you much longer for this chat. I realise I am interrupting the lunch break, so thank you to both so much for taking part in this SustyTalk. It's been a pleasure speaking to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And to you, the audience at home, we will be continuing these SustyTalks throughout the forum, and you will be seeing them uploaded onto the site throughout the week. So in the meantime, stay safe, stay positive, and keep up the SustyTalk.